New this morning, the Trump campaign is placing its largest ad buy of the race, at least so far, and they're getting big on two must-win swing states. We're talking about Georgia and Pennsylvania. Meantime, in the Midwest, the former president is now facing warning signs and troubling polls which show Vice President Kamala Harris now leading in the critical blue wall states by a sizable margin. The fresh wave of Democratic enthusiasm has Trump once again making outrageous claims, saying this weekend with no evidence that Kamala Harris is using artificial intelligence, AI, to create images of, quote, fake crowds. Of course, there's no truth to that. You can see right here, Harris objectively brought out big crowds at her events over the past several days. And only moments ago, the former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy offered Trump some advice on how to address Harris' crowd size. He simply said, don't. Listen.
You've got to make this race not on personalities. Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position when it comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime. Question what did she do when she was supposed to take care of the border as a czar. Question that they brought inflation. And she was the tie-breaking vote when it came to inflation, when it came to IRS agents.
New polling shows that for the first time in this presidential race, Americans think the Democratic candidate will do a better job handling the nation's economy. I want to bring in CNN's Phil Mattingly. He's joining us live from Washington right now. So, Phil, walk us through some of this new polling. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Wolf. And I think when you look at the battleground states or you look at the national polling, what you're seeing is a shift based mostly on Democrats coming home. This race has become the race that I think a lot of people expected in a very polarized electorate before Joe Biden dropped out of the race and was having serious issues with that Democratic coalition over the course of several months. However, the numbers on the economy are striking. And if you're the Trump campaign or Republicans who support that campaign, very problematic. You see right there the Financial Times Michigan Ross survey, Harris at 42, Trump at 41. That is a 7-point jump for the Democratic candidate since the last time the survey was taken. The first time in the nearly year that the survey has been taken, the Democratic candidate holds an advantage. Now, it is not a statistically significant advantage. Donald Trump still in many other polls holds a clear advantage on the economy, but the fact that Harris is not being tagged with kind of the economic doldrums that many people had placed on President Biden for month after month after month underscores a real concern for Republicans, particularly when you look at some of those broader surveys. Take a look at some of the New York Times Siena polling on those swing states. In each of the critical blue wall battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, while they are within the margin of error, Harris has certainly bumped up from where Biden had been with a 4-point lead in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. If you look at the national polling from New York Times Siena, Harris still within the margin of error, but with a lead in that polling more than anything else, showing that there has been a jump. So, Wolf, when you put all of this together, it has certainly been a good few weeks of momentum, both on fundraising, on volunteers, on polls, no question about it. But what the real concern is on the issues that Trump has long held a very clear advantage, perhaps that gap is closing as well.
And as you know, Phil, Kamala Harris is set to roll out her economic policy in the coming days. What should we expect?
You know, what's fascinating about this is throughout this kind of burst of momentum of these first several weeks, we haven't seen many tangible new policies coming out of Vice President Harris or the Harris campaign. In large part, that's because she's very aligned with where President Biden, where the Biden-Harris administration has been on the economy. Now, over the weekend, she did endorse a proposal first put forward by former President Trump. No tax on tips, doing that in the critical state of Nevada, where that is very important for service workers in that state, putting very explicit guardrails on what she would want to propose, which is a little bit different from the former president. When you talk to economic advisors, though, in the White House or who have worked for the Harris team, they talk constantly on bringing costs down. Critical components of President Biden's agenda that did not get over the finish line during his legislative kind of burst of success in his first 2 years, the care economy, home care, child care, things of that nature are areas where Harris has been focused on. Expect to see proposals along those lines. But more than anything else, there's a recognition inside the campaign. Costs have been too high. Inflation has been very problematic. That is an area where they need to focus, want to focus. How they decide to address that, though, we're going to have to wait and see in the coming days, Wolf.
And Phil, the Trump campaign, as you know, has just placed its largest ad buy of the election so far, $37 million. What states are being targeted?
You know, I think this is the most fascinating kind of piece of information that we've got right now. You can read anything you want in a lot of the polling, and things are fluid as we try and get our heads around a very new race. Where the campaigns are spending, that's what tells the story. And where the Trump campaign is spending a $37 million ad buy and ad reservations starting this week through the election tells you all you need to know, with millions of dollars going to states like Georgia, $23 million for Georgia, but also states like Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, more than $4 million. Just a few weeks ago, Wolf, Republicans were pretty confident that despite what Democrats wanted with that state that Trump has won twice, that was pretty much going out of reach. Now, clearly spending money there trying to defend that Republican-held state. But more than anything else, when you look at these numbers, the combination of the $23 million in new reservations in Georgia, and now with the new Pennsylvania money, in total more than $30 million in that state, that says everything. Because, Wolf, Democrats can hold on to every single state that President Biden won in 2020. But if they lose Pennsylvania and Georgia, Donald Trump ends up with exactly 270 electoral votes, and Donald Trump would be the next president of the United States. That's why the Trump campaign going very big on those two states, Wolf.
Yeah, extremely big indeed. All right, Phil, thank you very, very much. I want to discuss all of this with CNN political commentators Jamal Simmons and David Urban, and also joining us, our senior political analyst, Ron Brownstein. David, let me start with you. Harris's momentum is clearly getting under Trump's skin. Take a listen to what he's said about her crowd sizes and his own in the past week alone. Listen to this.
They said, oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd. The press is talking about the crowd. In New Jersey, I had 107,000 people. The press never even talked about it because they're fake. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. In history, for any country, nobody's had crowds like I have. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, we actually had more people.
David, why is crowd size such a big deal for Trump?
Yeah, Wolf, I can't answer that, but I can answer. I can make a suggestion, just like former Speaker McCarthy did. Stop talking about it. If I didn't know how many minutes the former president spoke there, but I wish he would have spoken about Kamala Harris's policies. Let's talk about them. Let's talk. She ran for president before. She wants to take Americans' guns away. She wants a single-payer health care system. She wants to end fracking in Pennsylvania. On and on and on. Let's talk about those things. Let's talk about the failed Biden-Harris administration that we're currently in right now. She's trying to run as an outsider when she's really the consummate insider. She's the current vice president of the United States. So she's trying to divorce herself from the Biden-Harris administration. Her name's on the door. Tough to do. Let's talk about those things, Mr. President. Listen, talk about the issues. If we make this about personalities or crowd size, we're going to lose. And you see that in the polling. The polling currently reflects that, because we're not talking about issues that matter to Americans. Runaway inflation, a porous border, crime, failed policies in Afghanistan, the Middle East. Let's focus on those. Let's drive those home. From now to the election day, Donald Trump would be the next president if he talks about those. If he continues to talk about crowd size, Kamala Harris is going to be president, and I don't want to see that. So, Mr. President, let's focus.
Let's see if he does. Jamal, the Harris campaign is now mocking Trump's crowd size on Trump's own social media platform, Truth Social. Is that the right move, or should they just ignore it?
You know, what they're trying to do is to go at Trump in a way that gets underneath his skin. I think here's what maybe is up. It's hard to get into the head of Donald Trump, but if we were just try for a minute to take kind of a magical mystery tour through Donald Trump's head, I think what he may be trying to do, first of all, everything's about him. It's not about the voters. He doesn't care about inflation that much. He doesn't care about the impact for people on getting child care for their families or any of the things that people want to talk about. What he cares about is his own strength, his own attention in media, his own attention and how much people pay attention to him in the media. But I think what he also understands is you go after somebody on their strength. This is a classic Republican tactic. You go after them on strength. And right now, the Harris campaign is an energy campaign based on energy. It's all momentum. George H.W. Bush called the Big Mo, right? This is all momentum. And if he can try to find a way to blunt her momentum, maybe he can get back in this race. It's the same reason he's going after her on attributes. Because again, People are for her because of who she is, the big issues she represents, the freshness, the newness, getting us out of this funk of the last couple of candidates. So if he can find some way to do that, I'm sure he thinks that will give him a chance to get back in. The problem is we don't have a lot of time. And usually when you're running those kind of campaigns where you're taking on somebody like that, you need enough time to get into the voters' minds, and we just don't have it.